Okay, so
We're back.
We're back. Hello, everyone. I'm Luke.
Back again. I'm Danny. I forgot that bit. Yeah.
Season 2, episode 2.
Indeed.
We're going to stop that on the next one, I think.
We're not doing that no more.
Don't need to keep announcing it. It's pretty boring. And if people are reading the actual thing, they'll know what it is.
Plus, does anybody care? Because I actually care no less about what number it is, and I know you definitely don't. So let's not do that no more then.
No.
Right. This is our next podcast. Happy days.
Indeed. And I think this one is, when we talk people development, is as old of a subject as you could ask for us to cover. But the irony,
Oh my word.
how much this has featured, I think, this year in 2024 as a topic is unbelievable.
It is. It is. I think, we are blessed, if you like, as human beings with the ability to give people feedback, to, share our experiences and the way that situations and circumstances make us feel. It's brilliantly beneficial to us as human beings to receive feedback because we get to know what works.
It's on feedback, by the way. I don't think we announced it.
We've not done that.
No,
Oh, okay.
We're talking about feedback.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're on feedback subjects. There we go. So in turn, it's about, brilliantly rewarding for yourself to know when something's working, or actually if you're doing something that's not quite landing or not working, to know about it. And yet, despite all of that, which are all the benefits, it's still a subject that comes up with us just not seemingly doing enough of.
No, and I think part of that is the I think it's a bit like communication. I think most people think a lot of the basics are done. In fact, if you think about the last probably decade, there's been a lot of, we want to create a coaching culture.
Yes.
The term coaching culture has been quite big.
Well, that's just a way of just saying we want to create a communication culture, though, right, isn't it?
I guess so.
It's like, we're not communicating very well, so if we coach everybody, then that will increase communication.
Absolutely. And it's all well and good. But my first question would be, okay, that's great. But in order to sort of go to the level of coaching culture, right, if we think about like a computer game, you go into the next level.
Yeah.
Have you completed this level, which is titled feedback? Because if you haven't completed that, which for me is the most readily available to use on a regular basis, in fact, talk about immediate impact, benefits, I put it on a higher pedestal than I do coaching. And I know a lot of people would disagree with me. I don't. I don't because I think that you don't know what you don't know. So you don't disagree, or you do disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I'm with you.
Right, yeah.
I'm with you. So you don't know what you don't know. So therefore, coaching is great, isn't it? If you've identified, a need and you want to improve in that, whether it's performance or potential, either way, whatever it may be, that there's a need for that. But what we're talking about here is, how do I know there's a need if I haven't done some feedback? So if I've done something really well, right, but you want me to do more of it because that's really helpful. If I don't know I've done something really well, how would I then even try and do more of it? Now, it might be I'll try and do more of it, and I need some help to do that. I need some coaching or some training or whatever. But unless I know, it's what am I working towards? There's no goal.
And also, it's really interesting because I was with a client the other week, and they said we were going to do some stuff on coaching, which was where the need was with this particular team. And they had previously used ProGrow.
Okay.
So grow, the acronym, goals, reality, options, and yeah. They'd done ProGrow.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
No.
I can't find it anywhere, right? So eventually again,
Has somebody made that up?
Well, I think someone that has a coaching business.
I mean, it's all made up, really, isn't it? I mean, even Grow's made up. But the point is, it's established around some real good principles.
So I think what's happened is that, and I can't remember the exact acronym, so I'm not going to be very helpful on this for the listeners, but I'm sure it's something like problem, resolution, opportunity.
So it's feedback before coaching.
There you go, right? So as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's basically the AID model of feedback, because what someone's done is gone, that's all well and good, but to your point, right, they've gone, well, how do you coach them if they don't know what they need to be coached on? Right, what we need to do is we need to present the problem, and so on.
Right, okay.
So someone's decided, instead of just going...
I've got a flaw in this, by the way. I'll come on to that in a minute.
Yeah, well, I think, hopefully I've found the same flaw. what they were, in essence, instead of just almost stubbornly going, no, coaching's the action, but there's just a bit of a prelude. No, the prelude is feedback.
Yes.
Right? And that's as soon as I read the PRO thing, and I think it was something along the lines of what I just said, I was like, yeah, you're going to give feedback that then stimulates coaching. So I get the theory, but actually all we've done is we've disguised coaching as feedback in that situation.
And actually, and if it's the instance of that feedback is developmental feedback, so in other words,
Yes.
things haven't gone quite so well,
Yeah.
but they attribute that then to a coaching conversation, you'd understand why somebody wouldn't be overly inspired by having repeated coaching conversations in the future.
But whoever's built the model, it's not actually to the detriment. What I'm saying is it actually confirms what we're trying to say here. Is
Totally.
the feedback first, then
But
coach.
just keep them separate, right? That's the thing.
In my opinion, in my professional opinion, absolutely I would. But if we go back to then, the whole purpose of this in terms of the why, is the paralysis that I see in people's physical bodies in a room when you talk about giving feedback, receiving feedback. It is beyond me. And in fact, the session that I did this week alone, feedback was rolled out to every colleague. Smaller business, 29 people. But it's often seen as a management and leadership development tool.
Right. As opposed to a colleague-to-colleague tool or as a person-to-person tool.
Well, absolutely. Peer-to-peer, colleague-to-colleague, individual to customer.
Yeah.
Feedback is a communication tool,
Absolutely.
not a leadership tool.
No, definitely not. No, it's just it's a behaviour and an activity, a skill for some people to master that. It should exist everywhere. And I mean, let's face it, it will appear in pockets all over our lives. I mean, when we were kids, you would have had, your teacher would have given you some feedback on various bits and pieces. Your friends probably have. I can't believe you're wearing that shirt type stuff. So we've had, that's right. Yeah, we've had, that's right, more than once. But we've had that around us, haven't we? But it's still not cemented in that thing. You think, I get feedback from my boss, not I get feedback from my colleague or my friend or
and to that's a really interesting point that you make there, Danny. Is actually we're always giving feedback in personal relationships.
always.
And if we don't, that can normally lead to some significant problems.
Absolutely.
And that's not about hierarchy or a leadership position. Feedback is feedback. We give our children.
Oh, sorry, you've got children.
You've got children. Feedback is that loop that allows people to just keep checking in. So for me, it's got to be the bigger priority right now. For me, out of, I don't know, all of the clients that we've worked with in the last 2 years, I don't think any would say that they've got it right, and they wouldn't mind me saying that. And it's not a criticism, right? But if I was to say, has everybody been trained or skilled or educated, whatever word you want to put in front of it, in the art form of feedback, the answer would potentially be no. I'd be really surprised if any.
I'd agree.
Well, by the client I've just gone.
And we
that too.
Yeah, but we also observe it. So it's not even just that, we kind of, your expectations and the companies and businesses' desires to want to do it. We quite often see it in real time. Because, even towards us as facilitators, for example, you know that, we can't possibly get it right every time. Sometimes we must do things that don't work so well for people. And equally, sometimes we do a fantastic job. We get people say, I really loved that, I really enjoyed it, but how often do we get people saying, that just didn't cut it for me? And I can't believe for 1 second that we get it right every time.
Of course we don't. And I think that the normalising and the humanising of feedback, I'm not going to go as far as say create a feedback culture, but it's not far off.
No.
Because if you can build that in at every level in an organisation, remove the fear. Let's face it, feedback needs almost... I challenge anybody to come up with a better name for it, because if we were to say something needs retiring, it's the word feedback. Why? Because it's been done so badly and been given such a bad reputation that anytime anybody hears it, even hears the word, hey, Daddy, you got a minute, I just want to give you some feedback. And you're in our industry, your brain does not say, oh, Luke's just about to compliment me.
That's right, yeah. I'm immediately thinking something's gone wrong.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge, is that you've got to rewrite the narrative. You've got to rename it, reshape it, reframe it. You've got to do something to make it more natural within an organization, something that people desire. We talk about growth mindset all the time. Growth comes from learning, saying self-aware. To be self-aware, you need to seek feedback.
Absolutely. And also you got to be willing to do that.
Have a desire,
your desire to want to, it's like, it's a word we use it often, don't we? Curiosity. It's like curiosity. If you go into it with that viewpoint, instead of, and in particular that relevance, I suppose, to developmental feedback when things perhaps haven't gone quite so well. If you go and say, look, this person's experienced something, and their feedback means the next time I do it, I might be better at it, or I might get a better result, or I might get a better outcome, or it might strengthen a relationship, or whatever the thing is. If you went in with that viewpoint, every one of us would be going, oh, great, that's amazing.
Well, what's our favourite saying? Feedback to move forward.
Yes, absolutely. So to make the future better. So
whatever you plan for, and you would hope most people, even if it's in a couple of minutes, planning in their head of giving that feedback, is the analysis of going through it is this going to move someone forward? Because that removes it. Because anything that is bad, called bad feedback, is in feedback is criticism, right?
That's right.
Simple as that. I got given really bad feedback once. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You got told bad things by someone that doesn't understand what feedback was, and potentially wasn't even trying to give you feedback.
Yeah.
Right? Feedback to move forward means that anything that you deliver in that feedback moment is an opportunity to move that individual forward, whether that be because it's something that's gone really well and we want to do more of that, more,
absolutely,
or some areas in which we could do things differently. And therefore, in both instances, the good one, it's learning that it's great and then doing more of it. The second one, developmental, is learning that things may need to change in order for it to be done in the way that's needed. It's moving someone forward, right?
Yes, completely. But my learn in all of this, and it's definitely taken a long time for the penny to drop, is for years as a trainer, facilitator, I've delivered sessions on feedback. And I've always, for many years rather, I've started off with a bit of a caveat that says, look, what I don't need to talk to you about today is how to give good praise feedback.
Okay.
Right? The shortfall as us as human beings, as a facilitator, is we're not very good at giving developmental feedback when things haven't gone so well. So let's have a session on that, and a group of delegates and myself will have a play around with that and all that in the ring. But I've come to realise, and only recently, it's actually not even just giving developmental feedback. We're not very good at giving praise feedback. Not necessarily because we don't know how, or, hey, look, it's not difficult, is it, to say somebody, great job. We're not very good at receiving praise feedback often as human beings as well. And I wonder if that's put us off a little bit. So we've tried to do it, and it's not gone so well, even though it was praise.
See, I would debate that we know how. Because I am totally bought into that point.
Maybe.
So now, I know obviously we have different ways in which we deliver. We've got the same content, but we deliver it slightly differently. I think, let's take the AID feedback model for instance, action, impact, do. I see more light bulbs now when I say, right, forget developmental feedback for a minute, because that's always going to be the more difficult of the two, right? Let's think about when you've given praise on a Friday afternoon. Yeah. And I walk through it. Some people will start with the A, action, what specifically has been done or not, right? But let's do the what's been done. Some people will go, hey, Danny, look, I just want to say you've had a really good week this week. Thanks very much. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, you well,
it's not real, this.
No,
I thought
of course it's not. No. Yours is developmental.
Yeah.
And that's where they stop.
Yep.
So you walk away, you go, right, I've given someone some great feedback. They're going to go away feeling great. Yeah?
Yep.
Someone may go to the next level up and go from A straight to D, missing the I, right? And they'll go, hey, Danny, you've had a really great week this week. Let's have more of that next week. So that's the do. What I want you to continue doing. And then next week you come in and maybe it's not been one of your best few months and that was like a highlight, and you go, you kind of regress. I sit there and I think, what happened? Best week of the quarter that I've seen Danny have, and I told him that, and I encouraged him to do more of it. I did my bit.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually when you say people know how to give good feedback. I don't think
Build the
we
motivation to act.
No, the impact, which
Yeah.
is, Danny, you've had a really great week this week. Can I just list out some of the things that you've done and the impact that it's had?
Yeah.
So where's the learning opportunity in, you've had a great week, let's see more of it? There's none. In fact, someone the other day, when we were walking through this, turned around and gone, I keep getting the feedback, keep doing what you're doing.
Brilliant. What am I doing?
But what am I doing? Right?
That's right, yeah.
I want to know.
Which bit?
So that
Getting out of bed in the morning.
and the intention of the individual giving that feedback, saying you're doing great, just keep doing what you're doing. But this person sat there like, but I'm not learning anything from that.
Yeah.
The learning is actually missed just as much, if not, I would argue more, in positive praise, because that's where it stays, in the praise category.
Yeah.
And since I learnt that, because it's easier to think about the good things, you go, oh my God, I even give good feedback badly.
Yes.
Or no, sorry, not badly. That's a really...
No, but
without
yeah,
impact.
Without impact, yeah. Well, actually, yeah, and arguably, have you done this great bit of work that somebody's done, the justice through your early example of that, necessary interaction? But I think this ties into the bit, and I go with someone, and I think we're on the same page. But my viewpoint is that we when we do try and give feedback, and we go down your approach of which is the action bit only.
Yeah.
Great job this week. The person goes, they might say thank you, but then they don't know what to say next. So then they're sort of sat there and it's like, it's like, thanks, and then the person giving the feedback goes, oh, this is now a bit awkward, isn't it? I don't know what to say next. So they're stuck, the individual's stuck, and it's like it's just like a really weird situation. Everybody goes, okay, right, see you next week then, and therefore I'd be put off by that. I then think next time, last time I gave some good feedback, it kind of fell a bit on deaf ears because it didn't land or it didn't have the impact or the gravitas that I wanted to have. And so therefore I think the challenge we've got is that in most instances, most of the time, the feedback that we need to give to other people is praise. Feedback is positive feedback.
Yeah, yeah.
There are many people, I mean, yeah, I know, we can't always get it right all the time, but even if you take a team of people, most people are coming to work every day to do a good job, right? When you have to give developmental feedback, it's not that you're going to be doing that 10 times a day.
No.
You're going to do it infrequently. So we've got to build up some habits in it.
I totally agree. And surely, therefore, that's where you start, right? If you want to create a culture where feedback is natural, where it's invited, where it's received well, it's enjoyed, surely it's easier to start the momentum with, right, once a day or once a week, every person in our business is responsible for sending, writing, verbalizing a positive piece of feedback.
Looking for it.
Looking for the
opportunity.
but doing it well.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Again, I keep using well, that it's not being done badly. What I mean is doing it effectively. Because if there isn't a lesson to be learned, yes, you can just go with gratitude. Everybody likes to hear a thank you, and that's different. But if you want people to learn, you've got to give that impact. I think there's a couple of things for me. If we do think about some of the challenging ones, some people don't enjoy giving positive feedback either because it's awkward, as you've explained. First and foremost, most of the things that prevent someone from giving feedback are internal things.
Yes.
What if they react like this?
Yeah.
What if they don't come into work?
What if I look a bit stupid? What if I get it wrong? What if I make it worse?
What if I make them feel bad?
Yeah.
I don't want to feel bad because I've made them feel bad, whatever it may well be. Well, again, probably haven't got time on today's episode to go through actually, your intent is not to make them feel bad. Your intent is to allow them to learn. That's how you position it. That's a different day. That's a different conversation. But ultimately, first and foremost, when it comes to giving positive or developmental feedback, get out of your own way.
Completely.
Assess all of the reasons that you're not going to do it, and I guarantee 99.9% of them are a you thing as the giver of the feedback.
And it's got nothing to do with you and everything to do with the individual.
Absolutely. Then look at, by not giving them that feedback, what isn't going to happen. Again, personal example, not personal example, but an example of facilitation that I did, and someone talked about this, and it was about somebody in a previous employment role that they were in had really bad body odor, right? 18 months, every colleague in that business
Wow.
neglected to tell that person. I actually think that is negligent.
I'll tell you what, it's way worse for that individual than being told it on the first
100%.
or the first day for them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awful, isn't it?
Yeah. So you got one, get out your own way, and two, get into the mindset of this is here to help someone move forward
Completely.
and learn. Right.
Completely. You don't know what you don't know.
And I think my other biggest lesson, and this is one of the things that I've always been a nightmare for, is if you plan to give feedback, don't assume that there's going to be an instant conclusion. So as a yellow social optimist, I used to, and I guess sometimes I still can, when I don't plan well enough, I go into the situation hoping that there'll be a start, a middle, and an end to that conversation.
And it's done.
Yeah. My expectation is I even planned out really well. I've got my A, I've got my I, I've got my D, and I've planned for the individual. I understand their insights, colours, disc colours, whichever one that I've chosen to use. I'm ready. And I also know through practicing what we preach, how people react to feedback. But the one thing that I never grasped was sometimes it's about giving it and then getting out of there.
Yes.
So let's look at developmental. It's, hey Danny, just want to give you some just some stuff that I've observed this week. AID, and you're like, I don't really agree, right? At that point in a past world, I'd have gone, okay, I'm going to go back through it because you've just obviously not listened.
Let me tell you again then.
Yeah.
Until I cave.
Yeah. Now let me offend you by suggesting
Yes.
you've not listened to anything that I've said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Brilliant.
Give them time.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest ones at the moment I'm talking about is go, right, hey, look, Danny, look, I didn't necessarily come to deliver the feedback for you to instantly agree. I came to give you the feedback. I appreciate you probably need some time to reflect. If you were to then go, no, I'm happy to sit here and talk about it. I'm not, already there's a warning sign there that goes, maybe we just need to let this person
Yes.
rationalise their thoughts.
Yeah,
Because I'm
absolutely.
ready to give the
Yeah.
feedback.
Well, the fight or flight mechanism's in there, isn't it? The angry emotion, the defensive mechanism is straight in of, why can't somebody protect it? We all know that the next day we probably go, yeah, actually, that was a very fair point, or whatever it may be. And giving people, I like this kind of concept that you've talked about, because it's giving people time to process it. Because we're going into the do stage, aren't we, right? It's at this do point. Where we go, right, I've given you the feedback, we've talked about the impact of it, what are we going to do about it? And actually, then we try to find a solution when the person's probably still debating whether or not they did that in the first place. So that they haven't even come to terms with the fact that this feedback even should be having this conversation, let alone, well, I've now got to do something differently that I don't even agree with yet.
Yeah.
So we've got to allow that to happen. And also, rightfully so, the individual has an opportunity to challenge that and say, I disagree. That wasn't, you've seen it that way, but that's not what I meant, or that's not what was intended. That conversation is probably going to be much better in a couple of hours' time or the next day, isn't it?
100%, because they're disagreeing, and immediately is when their brain is processing.
Yes.
They're desperately trying to process some of these things, and therefore it's a clouded judgment potentially. I'm not saying always, they might come back and say, I still disagree, but at least they get to present their case.
Yes, and also, isn't that about the great thing about human beings is we can always have a good conversation. We are, and I know it may be difficult in certain workplace scenarios between, a line manager and a member of their team and all that sort of stuff. I get that. But if we talk about this in more general terms, even if we disagree, we've had a really great conversation about it. If I'm the person providing you with the feedback, you're now more aware of how I see the world. You may look at your own situation differently. But that's only if it's developmental feedback. If it was praise feedback, I mean, how's anybody going to disagree? Even if they go, well, I think you made a bigger deal of it than what it is. Who cares if that was the outcome? The point is they've rationalised that and processed that in their own minds. And I think this gap that you talk about, this kind of giving people a chance to process, I think is as important in praise feedback terms as it is in developmental feedback terms. Is to go, I'll leave that with you, and then the person comes back and you thought about it, giving some, I have, yeah. how can we replicate that? How can we do more of it? How can we share it with the team? How can we, that type of stuff. I think this moment to think that's what I've taken from this conversation is, do we give people enough time to process and think, or are we trying to reach a conclusion too quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, are we trying to reach our conclusion? So if you think about praise feedback, I give praise feedback, and therefore what I'm actually doing is trying to give them my interpretation of what was great. But they may have loads of lessons that they draw out. If you do that feedback effectively, so actually I've taken some other things. So then double back and go, just wanted to check in following, were there any takeaways for you? And it's like, well, actually I thought about this. And you go, oh, I hadn't looked at it through that lens. Because, communication happens and, on the listener's terms. So what they hear, it might be that they come back, here's an interesting one, and play back their insights, and their insights on the good feedback aren't necessarily aligned, which is okay, but you might want to try and deliver it again because you're like, oh, but you missed a brilliant
Big
point.
part.
This is something that you were doing really, really well, and you haven't picked up on that.
But I'm now thinking about, you give some praise feedback, and you're underwhelmed by their response.
Oh, I've done that.
You've done that. So you give some feedback, and they go, all right. And you think, is that it? I've given this some real consideration. I've patted you on the back. I've said, great, really great job. Really, really great job around these things. This is what you did. This is what happened. Fantastic. And they've gone, all right.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't a big deal.
Because again, another me thing is I'm now wanting you to give me feedback on what great
How
feedback.
how good I was. Yeah. Oh, you're so good at making me feel good about myself. But it's underwhelming, right? But maybe the next day, there is then a bit more value in the lessons, the reflections, the learning, whatever it may be.
Place the person first. How positive or developmental. So stop thinking about your part in it and think about the duty.
Yes.
As a colleague, as a manager, leader, any role that you have, we all have a duty to support and help one another grow through, closing those blind spots and closing the gap on some of those hidden areas of lack of self-awareness. It is so helpful. So I guess as we close out on this episode, where I would be asking, and I guess I did ask it actually yesterday on our team call, didn't I? Because I'd shared some of my insights from what I'd seen and heard this week about, do we have an environment where people feel comfortable? And I've probably got a little bit more to do on a one-to-one basis with the rest of the team now, because everybody collectively said yes. Mm-hmm. But again, that's not the right environment.
Consensus of the matters, though, that, isn't it? Rather than...
It's not the right environment for everybody, right? So I need to make sure that I dig deep. But when's the last time, for those listening, you assessed the level of comfort or discomfort within your organisation for giving and receiving feedback? And the simple survey could be, when's the last time that you sought out somebody to give you feedback, and when's the last time somebody gave you positive feedback that you were able to learn from? I don't know. I'm making it up. But if you don't know the answer to that question, I would say that there's a massive opportunity culturally within your business to create a shift.
I agree, and I think my take from that is, and how I see that is, if whenever you're listening to this, whatever day of the week it is, if by the end of this week, right, you haven't given somebody some feedback in some way, shape, or form, you probably missed an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because there's an awful lot of good stuff happening around us every day that should be talked about more.
I agree. Great conversation.
Always is, mate. Always is.
It is. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to all of those that have been listening. We hope you enjoyed, and we will be back with you on the next episode very shortly. I don't know. We're taking about 2 weeks, aren't we? I think we said, didn't we? Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
That's right.
About every 2 weeks.
See you all soon.
Bye.